Hi everyone. We're going to continue to look at the second half of chapter 4 of Paul's letter to the Philippians. On Sunday I looked particularly at verses 10 to 13, and in these verses Paul talked about having found the secret of being content. Remember, this is Paul writing from a prison cell. We don't know if that was in Ephesus or in Rome, but he writes about being content in every situation. And that contentment that he's found doesn't come from within him. It's not something he's worked up through particular practices, but it's a contentment he finds, as he says in verse 13, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. It's what he's found from his relationship with Jesus and the strength that Jesus gives him. So a couple of questions just to unpack about that for you is, firstly, how are you doing on finding this secret of being content? In lockdown, that may be more challenging than ever. But talk about that a little bit, and then talk about what helps you do that and what particular obstacles do you find in finding contentment. So perhaps just stop the video and chat about that in your life groups for a few minutes. We're now going to look at verses 14 to 20. And in these verses we see why the letter has had such a warm tone. Paul really values the Philippians as partners in the gospel. In chapter 1, he wrote this, I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. This has been expressed in a number of ways, but some of those ways have been repeated financial gifts that the Philippians have sent to Paul to help him with his ministry. And now Epaphroditus has arrived to find Paul in prison, and he's visited with money. Now, you might not think you need to spend much money when you're in prison, but actually in a Roman prison, they wouldn't supply you with any food. You were responsible for doing that yourself. So this would be pretty important for Paul, because without money, he wouldn't be able to eat. But also, Epaphroditus would have turned up with news of the Philippians' love and concern for Paul. There's a bit tricky balance that Paul is trying to keep here. He's blessed by their gift of money, but he doesn't want it in any way for it to be seen that he's after their money. That was a problem in the early church, of preachers going around and there being an expectation of them giving to what he was doing. We still see that today in some parts of the world. You know, perhaps the worst of American evangelists, you see that demand that people give money to their ministry. So Paul's trying to be really grateful for what they've given him without it feeling like in any way he's asking for more. And he talks about 3 ways that giving can be thought about in not just in terms of money, but in terms of time and using our gifts and our love and our care and appreciation. 3 ways in which giving of what we have is a blessing. Firstly, it is a blessing to those who receive it, and Paul clearly expresses that. And it's not just the money itself, but it's what that speaks about relationship and partnership. And particularly Paul talks about the value that he feels in his partnership with the Philippians. Secondly, in verse 17, he talks about how it is a blessing for the giver. He says this, not that I desire your gifts. What I desire is that more be credited to your account. This is a bit of an accountancy terms for those of you who understand that, but it's not that this in any way is them earning their salvation, but it's an expression of love that God sees and God credits to their account. And thirdly, at the end of verse 18, we see that this giving blesses God. Paul talks about them as a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God. So in 3 ways, the Philippians' gifts of money and love and concern are blessing those who receive it, in this case Paul, those who give it, the Philippians themselves, and it blesses God himself. And then we get this great verse in 19. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. Paul's testimony is of a God who has met his needs, sometimes through the Philippians, sometimes no doubt miraculously. God's met his needs, not his wants, but his needs. And Paul is saying that God will meet their needs too. So a couple of questions off the back of this. Firstly, what does it mean for you to be a partner in the gospel? In Life Church, the name we give to those who've made a particular commitment to be part of us isn't members, but we call them vision partners, because this partnership in the gospel is important to us. So what does it mean for you to be a partner in the gospel? Secondly, have you considered how you are using your money, your time, your gifts, and your love in the partnership of the gospel? And thirdly, what's been your experience of God meeting your needs in the past? And finally, I'd just encourage you to pray for one another, particularly out of verses 13 and 19. Out of verse 13, just pray for one another that through our relationship with Jesus, we will find the strength that we need to be content in every situation. And then out of verse 19, pray that God will meet our needs in every situation too, and be quite specific in what you ask God for in your praying. Thanks.